Okay, welcome everyone. Thank you for being here tonight. We'd like to thank our alumni panelists, our alumni board members who've taken the time to be here with us this evening. And I'm going to go ahead and kick it off to our Vice President of the Alumni Board, Victoria Marion, and she's hosting us from Dallas, Fort Worth, Texas. Thanks, Victoria.
Especially those who promised me that they were coming back after our board meeting. Thanks. I'm Victoria Marion, Alumni Board President, Vice President. Thank you all for taking time to be here with us for this Student Alumni Board meet and greet. We've done this several times, and our purpose is basically to assist you and so that we can give you what we need. The Mandel School Alumni Board works to connect alumni and students by conducting events such as this one, the Career Connections, and Homecoming and Reunion. Supporting students is one of the primary goals of the Alumni Association, and as alumni board members, we want to see you succeed and keep the legacy of our degrees and the Mandel School going strong. Alumni support the school through annual fund donations and various other funds which help provide every student at the school with some form of scholarship each year. Nada DeFranco is the Alumni Relations Director and Staff Liaison to the Alumnus Board. Please contact Nada to reach alumni for networking purposes, and remember to connect with the school on LinkedIn and other social media platforms. Now, before our alumni board members introduce themselves, I'd like to encourage students to think about questions you might have as we go. Even if an alumnus doesn't have the same concentrations or specialty as you, they have great career advice and experience you can learn from. So take this opportunity to listen to each of them tonight. As has happened in the past, you may end up changing your career path based on their answers and input. What I'm going to ask is for each alumni board member to introduce themselves for 2 minutes each, telling a little bit about your career and why you serve on the alumni board. And I will start with myself. I will then pass it on to someone, and I would appreciate if the next one would do the same thing. So I graduated from CASE in the Advanced Standing Program in 2003. For the last 10 years of working, I did it at the Department of Veteran Affairs, and I worked on the Comprehensive Homeless Center program where I held 4 different positions there. It was a phenomenal opportunity for me. And the team that I worked with, I will never be able to say enough how wonderful it was working with basically the same group of people for my 10 years there. As a non-traditional student, it was a little difficult sometimes to get involved with a lot of things that went on at the school, especially as an advanced standing student, because at that time I had 24 hours of internship and 16 credit hours each semester. So all I knew how to do was to get to the Mandel building, park early on the street, and have enough quarters so that I would be able to not get a ticket. That was it. That was all. For 11 months, it was just a blur, and then all of a sudden I was done. I'll never forget, because I don't think that you guys have that problem now, but we couldn't graduate with the May class. They said we would have to wait till the next year. And that has changed since I was there, but it's really interesting because that following year, I told my mother, I said, yeah, I think I'm going to walk. Walk where? I said, I think I'm going to go to the graduate. What graduate? Girl, you're finished. She knew what she was talking about. I'm glad that I followed it. Now, I retired in June of 2021, and I'm currently working private practice with BetterHelp.com. One of the biggest things that I do like about it is because they don't take insurance, it affords us an opportunity to basically just do what we really went to school to do, and that is to actively listen and provide some viable options without having to do a treatment plan or progress notes. So with that, I will move to Susan, please.
Hi, everyone. I don't know how many students are sitting there.
It's hard to see. So, but anyway, I graduated in 1981. my focus was on mental health and macro systems and policy and development. The first 8 years of postgraduate, I worked at a place called Rap Art Center, and it was serving youth and families, and just loved it. And coincidentally, after 40 years, after my career, all of us have reunited, and we meet once a month working on community projects. I took a non-traditional path with my social work degree and went into military intelligence. Started out in family programs, basically doing training, policy, and procedures development and counseling with the Coast Guard for 10 years. And then for the next 21 years, I worked in military intelligence with the Defense Intelligence Agency. Very interesting trajectory. I just finished a podcast with Dean Voisin, and that's going to be forthcoming, released forthcoming. Right now, I am focused on being part of a provider group serving veterans and their families in Ohio. And I will pick, let me see here, Rachel.
Thank you, Susan. Good evening. My name is Rachel Trilsch. I had the opportunity to graduate from the Mandel School in 2015. I was a full-time student and participated in the student council while there. I currently work for the Community Counseling Center of Ashtabula County. It is a behavioral health care provider in a more rural community in the tippy top of northeastern Ohio. Previous to that, social work was the second career for me, and a really fabulous second career opportunity because there are just so many different things, as you'll hear more about tonight, that you can do with that education and that degree. I started in strategic marketing and advertising and went back to school. Coming out of my master's program, I focused on direct practice, particularly in the area of understanding dual diagnosis, and then moved into more of a macro context. Spent several years working for the Cleveland Rape Crisis Center in northeastern Ohio, developing a better understanding of the impact and context in our communities and for individuals and families regarding sexual abuse and sexual assault. And then have continued on in more of that macro context regarding my clinical education, serving as the quality improvement and compliance manager now for my current organization. The reason that I serve on the alumni board is because of how powerful relationships are. Relationships really are the resource that is indistinguishable. It's the resource that you can continue to tap into. Things become so tight. There's a lot of feelings of scarcity, particularly these days where we see increased need for behavioral health services. We see workforce shortages. We see a lot of intensity for people. And what I have discovered is that the relationships that we build through our education, through our work, those are so often the source of solution for so many of the problems that I run into. And so being able to serve on the alumni board allows me to continue to tap into those resources. It's one of the reasons that I chose this school for my master's education, because of the network that you get access to and the relationships you get the opportunity to build. Thank you. I will pass it on to Shirley.
I'm a student. I'm a first-year student. Hello?
Hello.
Rachel, you like to
Yes,
find
I'm a
someone?
first-year student.
Got it.
I'm just joining in. Okay.
Got it. Okay.
Thank
So,
you.
all right. Story to be told, Shirley. Jamie, are you there?
Yes, I'm here. Can everyone hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay, great. So I'm driving right now. My name is I am a 2010
Jamie,
graduate.
Jamie, you're not here. We're not hearing you clear enough. It sounds like you're
Okay,
underwater.
just me later.
No. Okay, try now, Jamie.
Hello?
Yes, that seems to be better.
Better?
I think.
Okay, great. Okay, I'm driving. Is this better?
Yes.
Okay. So my name is Jamie. I'm a 2010 M&O grad. I just started a new career and relocated geographically to Boulder, Colorado, working to develop a alumni program for a college program that provides opportunities and resources to high-performing, underprivileged students. Before that, I had left about a 15-year career in fundraising and was working at Case Western Reserve University School of Medicine. So it's been a pretty big change for me all around. And the reason I decided to join the board is because being an M&O student was a pivotal part really in me continuing a career in nonprofits. The connections I made there really allowed me to navigate that career. And being a student made me self-aware of my skills and where I fit in to the nonprofit sector, and allowed me to recognize how those skills can build teams, thoughtfully participate in teams, and really figure out a way to balance that, finding a career that meets your why, and that you're doing really fulfilling a career and not just having a job. And I can't really see who else is on the call. I think Teresa is there, so maybe I'll go to her next.
Hello? Okay. Thanks, Jamie. Can everyone hear me okay? Online too, I guess? Thanks, everyone. My name is Teresa Schleicher. I'm an MNO, Master of Nonprofit Organizations, class of 2007. And I currently work for the Cleveland Orchestra. I just started in January after 9 years at an organization called City Year Cleveland. Very, very different. Like Jamie, I sort of took a hard right turn in the organization I worked in. So I've spent probably close, I'd say easily 15 years now working in the development fundraising field. Really started after my graduation from Case with my MNO. And I've worked several other nonprofits. You probably heard of Junior Achievement of Greater Cleveland, the Cleveland Leadership Center. You might have heard of Leadership Cleveland or Cleveland Bridge Builders. And as I said, City Year. Prior to that, I did work at Case. Actually, when I started my program, I was working here at Case in the med school, not doing anything really related to nonprofit management or nonprofit organizations, but I was able to take advantage of the tuition discount when I worked here, but I left there sort of looking to be more focused, and with my MNO program, realizing that, not just working at a nonprofit isn't enough. I wanted to find a direction within it, and I wanted to work for a certain type of nonprofit, which led me to the Cleveland Leadership Center, and their focus is civic engagement, leadership training for all, many different audiences, from high schools through, C-level, C-suite level folks. And that was a great learning experience. A small nonprofit, worked at Junior Achievement briefly, small office. City Year Cleveland, another small nonprofit. And then in January of this year, I took a job with the Cleveland Orchestra, large nonprofit, very different mission and focus. But it's been a good move for me. And, I would say, struggling with that a little because many of my previous jobs had been organizations where we're dealing with populations that are deal with lack and deal with racism and other serious problems. to, you know, a kind of, I guess you could say, maybe more elite organization. But one thing, in thinking about it, I've heard people say, you know, we're working at the organization, we're trying to put ourselves out of business, you know, city, or we're trying to end students dropping out and the education crisis, and, you know, we're trying to end that. So we're trying to put ourselves out of a job. At the orchestra and maybe other big arts organizations, we're trying to keep it going. It's 100 years old, and we got to keep this going. And the world is changing a lot from when it opened. And how are we being relevant, and how are we responding to the world today? So that's a little bit about my background and I guess my reason for joining the board. I guess I've been here about 5 years. I wish sorry, Nada, I don't remember the exact year, but it's been about 5 years. And so I've been away for a while. I graduated in 2007, so that's, you know, it's like 10 years almost before I joined the board. And Nada, bless her, who I actually was in my program with at the MNO, we were maybe close to the same year, just, I don't know, she kept a track of me, and she reached out and asked if I wanted to join the board. And I do other volunteer, you know, some other volunteering, and I thought, I would love that. I would love to come back and reconnect. And if I can somehow help grad students, I'd be happy to do it. So I'd say, you know, it was the wanting to do something, you know, altruistically, but I'm getting something out of it too, from these fabulous folks who are on the board, the students and the staff of the Mandel Center. And I do it, I guess, I keep learning. I learned so much from, you know, the alumni here and from you as well. So it's a networking opportunity, it's a learning opportunity, and I'm greatly appreciative. I think I'll just keep it simple here, and I'll pass it to Sharice.
And I'm just going to step out a little bit and pass it to Ramses so we can just
good
go
idea.
straight on down the line.
Okay.
That was smooth. How's it going, everybody? My name is Ramses Clements. I'm Msass grad of 2013. I finished in 12, but couldn't walk to 13. After I graduated Msass, I went to intern at City Council, and just to backtrack, I did community development, and it's called community social development now. Is that correct?
I think it's something new.
It's called something new.
It's called Community Practice for Social Change.
What she said. So that's what I did. I started off with an interest in direct practice, but wanted to combine my interest of being out in the community, but also understanding and wanting to assist with providing direct services to those that the population I was serving at the time. But at the same time, I had a strong interest in policies. So, you know, what better place to go than council? And I did a lot of work with Joe Zimmerman at the time with the Healthy Cleveland Initiative, trying to focus on the impacts of public health, of course, including mental health, because they're one and the same here in the greater Cleveland area. Shortly after that, I went to work at Belfair, and I did childcare work there at their residential facilities for a number of years, and then actually got promoted to be a supervisor for their homelessness youth program, assisting families at risk for homelessness and human trafficking in Cuyahoga County, which I put a lot of miles on my car. So that was a lot of fun, but at the same time, having a lot of that focus be on direct work, I wanted to, again, backtrack and kind of do a little bit more program management, policy work. So shortly after leaving Belfair for the homeless youth program, I went to Old Brooklyn Community Development Corporation. So there I was responsible, I was a community outreach coordinator. My responsibility was to help develop better educational opportunities for all students and families, especially with Old Brooklyn being the largest municipal neighborhood for the city of Cleveland, with about almost 30,000 residents, I believe, at least at the time. So working with public, private, and charter schools, again, improving their opportunity to improve the education for the students and families within their area. So I stayed there for a couple of years, and then received the opportunity to go to the city of Cleveland, which is where I've been since 2017. I started off there in HR for Cleveland Water. I never thought I'd be working with water. But one thing that Msass always taught me, you're always working with and for others. And so in that regards, even though I was training a lot of those new employees on how to understand how they can better their practice and their skill sets for providing their services, which is water, to those in Northeast Ohio. I was there for about 3 years before getting pulled up into our public affairs department due to a lot of my outreach efforts and skill sets and relationships I've accumulated over the years since graduating from Msass. And I've been up our public affairs department for 2 to 3 years until NADA recently I just got promoted to be the manager of our education outreach department for Cleveland Water, to where we work on having a larger presence in the communities and neighborhoods throughout Northeast Ohio, attending events, working to improve water equity and water affordability for families and those that are in need, along with other partners and whatnot, such as Cleveland Housing Network, Step Forward, and other agencies, Care Alliance, and so on, that provide services to those throughout Northeast Ohio. And I've been doing that since January. I was interim, and then the city made it official. So what drew me to join the board were, of course, the Marks. Mark Chubb, who I saw on my way in, he couldn't stay, and also Mark Joseph. They really helped guide me when I was kind of lost here at Msass, didn't know what to do. I was this Chicago kid in Cleveland, Ohio, wanted to go back home, but they really told me to stick it out and advocate for myself, to say, hey, what works, what doesn't work for you, and help me figure out what's the best way on providing, that need, providing that service for those. And one thing I wanted to do was help others. That's one thing I knew I wanted to do. So they really helped me focus on understanding what that is, and to always pay it forward. So one way I could pay it forward is by doing talks like this with all of you and my colleagues and panelists here. So I think that's it. So I'm passing it down here to Kwame, right? Sorry.
Yes. Well, are you passing it back?
Oh, no, sorry. No.
Okay, so I'm going to go next, and we're just going to finish out the folks that are here with us today in person. So my name is Sharice Jones, and I am a graduate of Msass 2008. I don't know why it's so hard for me to remember that year. Let's see, currently I work as the program manager for a human services degree program at Cuyahoga Community College, and we train students to become chemical dependency counselors, social work assistants, and they go on to obtain their social work degrees, many of them. But since graduating, so I guess I should back up. When I was at Msass, I was an intensive weekend student, and I was also community development is what I think it was back then. But I was a mental health fellow as well, and I worked in mental health, adult mental health in the crisis stabilization unit while I was a student here. And so since graduating, I have done a lot of roles that have been both clinical and non-clinical. And currently, I love training students to take over the mantle in the profession. Prior to that, I was the director of the domestic violence shelter for what is now Journey Center. I've also overseen adolescent treatment for behavioral health agency, as well as prevention, HIV prevention and substance use disorder prevention. And I've worked at Big Brothers Big Sisters of Greater Cleveland. So I've had my hand in a lot of different pots within the field, and I love to be able to use all of those experiences. And so I tell my students now, this is the first position where I've been able to use everything I've ever learned, everything I've ever trained for, all of my past experiences and my jobs to help you guys to become what it is that you want to become. And I would say that the reason I am a part of this board, I give back in a number of different capacities. NADA outreached me because I attended as an alumni event such as this one. And I'm here because of students like you guys. I saw this as a great opportunity to be able to connect and remain connected to the students, even as a graduate, on a very intentional basis. So I'm very happy that you guys are here joining us in person and virtually, and I look forward to hearing your questions. And I'm going to pass it on to Linda.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Linda Crowell, that's Crowell. And before I start with my experience at Msass, I'll tell you how I got here. I was working for the county, so when I moved here from Georgia, I was working for Cuyahoga County, and I started off as a caseworker, and then I moved to the social services area. But all along, the county had provided opportunities for persons to go back to the Mandel School, or before it was called the Mandel School, SAS, as we knew it. Persons were able to go back to school under a grant, a Title IV-E grant from the Department of Education. So people were able to go back to get their degrees, advanced degrees. And everybody was going back except me, and I just kind of never got that opportunity. But all of a sudden, the 1 year when I applied, I was accepted into the program. And so then I became a student here at Msass, at SAS. And I was in I think we call the concentrations administration. And I was also in the intensive weekend program, so that was a 3-year program that we had classes on the weekends. And somewhere in the meantime, in the between time, I decided to go back to pursue my PhD. So I graduated one in 1990, and then I immediately began to pursue the PhD. But in the meantime and in the between time, I was fortunate to leave the county to become employed here at the Mandel School. So I began working with the Center on Urban Poverty and Social Change as a research associate. So I was coordinating research projects. And then, in addition to that, I became the director of admissions when the grants that I was working on were over. I became the director of admissions. And also in the meantime, in the between time, I was able to be admitted to the doctoral program. So I received my Msass, the MSSA degree in 1990, and I decided, well, I just may as well get school on over with. And so I then pursued the PhD, which I finished in 1995. So I worked for the county for 20 years, and then I became a professor at the University of Akron in the School of Social Work. And I retired from there as Associate Professor Emeritus in 2007. And I just kind of sat around for a while, and I was out walking one day, and one of my neighbors said, I'm leaving Cleveland State University, and we're looking for somebody to take over the program, which was called the University Partnership Program, that sent students back to school to receive their master's degree with the expectation that they would work in a county public service agency. If they got their master's degree or their undergraduate degree, if they got their degrees, and if they used their field placements at the county Department of Children and Services, and if they got a job after that, they received a $5,000 bonus. And so I was like, well, I guess I'm not doing anything. And so I did that for 7 years with Cleveland State University. And then I did kind of just retire from that in 2019. And so I've kind of had a circuitous, interesting, nonstop time of being connected to universities once I left the county. And so I'm like most of the other ones so far on our panel. I didn't with the county, people kind of start and retire. But I decided it was time to move on, and I left to come here to the Mandel School. And I'm like others who thought, well, hey, I'm not just going to stay in one place at one time for the rest of my life, the rest of my working career. And so I've been able to negotiate and navigate some very interesting opportunities. And so I guess I'm getting ahead of the game by saying it's always important to know when it's time to move on and it's time to move up. And so I'll share that with you, but also, and so I'm on the board because I want to be connected to the university. So as I was sharing, I've been a student, I am now an alum, I've been a staff person, and I was a director of admissions when I actually left the Mandel School. And I have been a professor, so I've taught courses as an adjunct professor. So life has been interesting, and I'm endeavoring to wish you that same opportunity, that find something, find your niche, find something that nobody else is doing. I was able to find a niche through Dr. Claudia Colton, who knew me who was actually one of my advisors when I was working on my dissertation. And she knew that I knew how to do data collection because I had to go stomp the grounds all up in the projects all over everywhere, finding the respondents for my dissertation. And once I left here, she was looking for somebody to do data collection on research projects that the Center on Urban Poverty and Social Change received grants for. And she asked me if I'd be willing to do that. And so I now have 5 or 6 people who work for me that whenever there's a need for somebody to go collect data in the field, these, mostly ladies, will go out, find the respondents, conduct the interview, and return the completed surveys, either hard copies or virtually, to the Mandel School. So opportunities come if you just look for them, and if you just are excited enough or crazy enough sometimes to just leave what you're doing and go somewhere else and find some other opportunities. So I'm on the board because it helps me to remain connected to the university, to the school, to the students, to the faculty, to the departments, and to my fellow alums.
And students. Hi everyone, my name is Kwame Bachwe. I graduated 2019 from the MSSA Community Practice for Social Change. I'm saying it and looking at you, Ramses. I currently work with Cleveland Neighborhood Progress as the Director of Community Impact and Innovation. Just a bit background on Cleveland Neighborhood Progress. We are what you would call, we are the backbone of the CDC ecosystem here in the city of Cleveland, given that we provide resources and capacity development to all the community development corporations that work across the city in the neighborhoods. And so we work towards the revitalization of our neighborhoods. So we have 2 subsidiaries. One is a CDFI, which is a community development financial institution that does primarily real estate and small business entrepreneurship support, lending. And then we have New Village Corporation that does real estate development. And so I'm sure for a lot of you who are in the macro social work path, you understand some of the dynamics in communities and neighborhoods and how that work requires a comprehensive sort of approach to the work that needs to be done. So that's what we try to do at Neighborhood Progress. So multiple portfolios tackling different issues within our neighborhoods and our communities. And my work is specifically helping around strategy for channeling resources, primarily monetary resources into neighborhoods for revitalization and what we would call undesigning the red line. For those of you who are familiar with what redlining is as well. So that is the crux of the work that I do currently. But in addition to that, I'm engaged in a number of different things. So recently started a consulting firm with a group of friends where we are helping provide assistance and technical support to nonprofits, specifically the ones working in neighborhoods. So we've been doing a lot of work around sustainability and connecting cities and municipalities here in Northeast Ohio to sustainability resources because of the recognition that, a lot of the conversation about making the lives of people in neighborhoods better is also going to be tied, or it's already tied to issues around environmental justice. So how do you ensure that you are working with various local governments and giving them the resources and the capacity that they need to be able to do that work effectively? So that is sort of what I do. My Mandel School journey started, I'm an international student. I came here as an international student from Ghana in 2017. I was recruited by one of the Mandel School faculties here, Dr. Mark Joseph, while he was at the University of Ghana on a sabbatical. And I was working at the University of Ghana then at the Department of Geography as a teaching assistant at the time that I was recruited. But prior, I've worked as a journalist, I've worked in corporate affairs, I've done all the things there is to do. I see sort of the value that I got from the macro path that I took as it equipped me with tools and framework and the lens to be able to go out in the world and seek to make the difference that I think needs to be made. And so even the pathways that I've chosen after Mandel School have been a bit non-traditional in a number of different ways, but I've been able to take the tools that I've learned from here, the making of logic models, coming up with theories of change, things around strategic planning and effective community engagement and all of those. I've been able to take each of these tools and make sure that I apply that lens into any room that I step into. And so typically when I talk to students, I always say that sometimes it gets a bit fuzzy, especially if you're in macro, because you do not always see the end. You don't always know exactly what you'd come out and do. But the most effective, way of doing it is making sure that you take the tools and the skills that you are acquiring here, take it seriously, and seek to apply that in whatever room you are in and whatever work you choose to do after here. So I think that would be it for me, unless I missed anything.
Okay, I think you're good. Is that all of the alum and board members? Okay, so believe it or not, we're ready for questions from our students. I forgot how well-versed our alum are and our board members are. Please raise your hand if you'd like to ask a panelist something. If you are present, Nada, I guess you'll be able to see their hands better than I. And Shirley, just let me know if you have any questions. Feel free to put your questions and comments in the chat as well. Questions?
I have a question. Hi, everyone. My name is Emmanuel Skandar. I'm an international student here. This is my first semester in the MNO program. I'm just wondering if you have any advice you could give us as students here that you wish somebody has given you when you were still in the program and when you first graduated.
Anybody can jump in to provide their sound advice, and anybody up here as well from the panel?
One more time.
What's an advice that you could give us you wished somebody has given you when you were still in the program and when you first graduated?
Okay, if nobody else wants to go first. I would say a number of students that approach me are very timid about, I know you have a busy schedule, I don't know if you have time to squeeze me in. And what I would say, I didn't realize even as a student that the alumni, the faculty, people who go into these professions do it because we really want to help people, and that's all people. And so even as busy as we ever get, we're never too busy to, give you guys advice, to point you in a right direction, to link you to somebody else. So I wish someone had told me just how important networking is, and just how available and accessible the family of the Mandel schools are to that process.
Use and abuse us. We're here for it. But to add to that, don't freak out, no matter where you at, or what school you're currently in or looking to join. I was completely lost. I didn't know where to go, what to do, or was worried because May was approaching very, very quickly. And, at the time I was graduating, I was turning 24. So I was like, do I stay in Ohio? Do I go back home? What do I do? I didn't take advantage of the alumni network, and I didn't figure this out until I got to city council, and a young lady named Pat Britt. So Miss Pat, she's a OG, clerk of council, and she, did many things here at Msass. And when she recognized my work and she told me who she was, she reassured me, like, you can do this, you're fine, you got this. So I know that case, whether you're in the M&O program or Msass, that you're well equipped with what you need to be successful afterwards. Of course, it's always going to be scary, but hearing that from her, just because how acclaimed she is in her field, it meant a lot. So I was like, oh wow. So that boosted my confidence up to where I'm ready for that next step.
Anybody else want to add from online?
Please ask the question. Never think that the question is not important enough, because you won't know until you ask. Closed mouths don't get fed. I came in and was very nurtured in undergrad at Ursuline. They just carried me all the way. And when I came here and found out that it wasn't the same thing because it was a much bigger school, my advisor, co-director Ursuline, had to throw some cold water in my face, said that we didn't give you this foundation for you to not use it. And what I found out was all I had to do was to ask why, how, and the answers are given to you.
I'll share just one perspective from an international student. So for a lot of international students, I think there's always the question when you're in your second year going towards completion, am I going to go back to my country and practice there, or do I want to practice here for some time and gain some experience before I go back? But the answer to the question is not always very simple. Or straightforward, because there are, immigration processes that you'd have to go through. And as far as the system is right now, as you know, after graduation, you only have 1 year. And 1 year is not even remotely enough to gain any of the experience that you need. I think my advice, which nobody really gave me while I was here, but I kind of stumbled into it, was that as an international student especially, you need champions. You need people that would be in your corner when you are getting to the point of graduation, because the process of transitioning from a student into the professional, like the workforce, it's complicated, it's expensive, it's hectic. And you need people that believe in you and who will stick their neck out for you. And I got that from the relationships that I built during my second year internship. And so my boss during my second year internship, for instance, became one of the main advocates and champions for me when I was trying to figure out a lot of the immigration stuff post-graduation. So the main advice is that, and I say this to even is it native students? I'm not sure what the appropriate terminology is, but the local students, now just call it that. The advice generally I would give is that, nothing beats preparation. So as far as graduation is concerned, by your second year, whatever internship that you are doing, making sure that it almost aligns with whatever work you would want to be doing when you graduate, so that when it becomes challenging and difficult and you're not able to find something out of that, they've seen your work ethic, they've seen the product that you're able to put in, they've seen your value, and they'll be willing to, do the work that is needed to help you, keep your status and maintain you. So that second year internship particularly is extremely important and crucial.
Anybody else have any questions?
I'm sorry, I came quite late due to a conflict, so I apologize if this was touched on already. But there was a panel the other day discussing licensing, particularly within the social work profession. I don't know if any of you guys would be willing to share your experience with licensing, whether you pursued a license, and if you think it was beneficial for your career trajectory.
I'm happy to jump in here. So I started, my focus was indirect practice. And so there was an assumption that I would be pursuing my license in order to do clinical work. Things changed, and I used my skill sets to operate more in a micro context. It was still very beneficial to have that license. So there's so much flexibility with your degree, as you can see by what everybody has shared this evening. However, I would highly recommend, if it makes sense and it fits for you, to go ahead and get that independent license, because it opens up a lot of doors when it comes to opportunities to serve in different roles, particularly affiliated with different types of grants. So in my experience, it was something that provided me with some leverage. It also opened up doors to advancement in a different way when it comes to leadership roles and the opportunity to grow in your earning potential.
And I would concur. I think it's better to have it and maybe not need it than to need it and not have it. And then now it's time to get it while you're still in the learning mode, while you still have some of the content in your mind that you can give it back as you go through the exam. And I don't think you will go wrong. You know, I was licensed, grandparented, grandfathered, grandmothered in. And so I did keep mine and never needed it, especially for a position, but I always kept it until I officially retired. But also, it was something that I would always put on my resume or my vita. So I would say yes, don't miss the opportunity at this point to become licensed.
And I was community and social development, but I knew that the higher your degree status, the higher your credentialing status, the more valuable you are to some employers. And the test is an academic exam, so you're never closer to the material than you are when you're a student. The rules have changed for you guys, but I took the clinical exam out of Msass. So I graduated in May, took the exam in November, and passed it. So, I mean, it is very doable. You are being prepared with everything you need to be successful on that exam. And so if there's no reason for you not to take it, it's like Linda said, it's better to not need it and have it than to need it and not have it.
Hi, my name is Lynn, and I'm a first-year M&O student here. We talked a lot about networking throughout the conversation today, and from what I acknowledge or from what I know, Cleveland seems to be a very close-knit nonprofit community, and everyone at some point seems to really, know each other or feel connected to, different community leaders here in Cleveland. What would you say are some of the opportunities for you to network or to really expand your professional network in your personal, in your position right now? After you graduate, what are some of those opportunities for you to really feel connected to the nonprofit community? How do you get to expand your network to the point that it is right now?
I would say first and foremost, just because a lot of my work now is network heavy. And speaking about networking, whether it's alumni or at your workplace, what I found to be really, really helpful is finding a handful of people. It could be one or two in each, like one or two that's outside your spectrum. So if you're talking about nonprofit, find someone from like the Cavs and like a bank. And then find two people within your field of work in nonprofit, whether that's within nonprofit clinically or at a development corporation, for example. Because it's good to have someone outside that perspective that knows you as you and who you are as a person. And that looks better, especially working in HR, on a resume too, to say, oh, this person is a reference. This speaks strongly to who they are, not just as a professional, but as a person as well. One of my mentors, he was a VP of development at First Federal in Lakewood. He worked at the bank. And just because of who he was, and he was a big decision maker in Northeast Ohio, that's how I landed my gig at the city, by just knowing him. I went to a basketball game and didn't realize the person who I was sitting next to was the chief of HR for the city. So you never know who you are. And it is a close niche. I don't want to say nonprofit, I mean just in general, in Northeast Ohio. whether you're from here or not. You know, I'm not from here. I'm a Bulls fan. I'm a White Sox fan. I hate all Cleveland sports. Sorry. You know, I'm really competitive. But but it's good to have a variety of individuals that you can go to as well. And a lot of those individuals are people, you know, that I gained from here and in my current workplace. You know, I always tell people definitely don't burn bridges, even if you leave a work placement. You know, try to leave on good terms, so you never know when the individual is going to be of value to assist you, or they may be a partner down the road. And if you guys left on bad terms, then that's going to be a really, really tough project you got to work on. But I would say have a variety of mentors from different fields. And if, again, that's where we come and play. If you would like to have some direction on what that looks like, we'll be more than happy to help. But that variety, you never know how handy they would come, because I don't think I've gotten a position that didn't really come down or funnel through one of my mentors. Every position was because they recognized what my interest was. It was funny, we were talking to Jeff earlier. He actually put me through the Cleveland Neighborhood Institute through one of the programs, paid for it through the CDC because he wanted to see me progress. And then that's what led me to my next step. So, and people are always watching in a good way. People are always watching. I was in my current position in HR. I got a phone call. I was literally in the restroom, sorry, TMI. And I saw my watch ring, and I saw that it was a 664. Anything that's 216-664 is a city number. So I freaked out. I was like, oh, I missed a phone call. Went and called. It was my chief. He said, hey, you got to call Miss Jackson. She's chief of public affairs. He said, she needs you ASAP. I said, oh, okay. Called her. Bam. She said, you know, you do a lot of community-based work. I know she saw that, went to Msass, and she wanted me to help out with her efforts with improving our presence out in the community. And I didn't do anything. I was just sitting at the house, washing my hands. And so I say that because you never know who's watching and who's recognizing your efforts and your skills.
I was out walking when I ran into somebody, or somebody ran into me, and I ended up with the position. But also, I don't know that we've mentioned, but become a member of the National Association of Social Workers. That's the professional organization. You can get a really big discount as a student. So that's where you meet other students. Go to conferences, go to meetings. Also, don't be afraid to serve on boards of agencies. I have learned so much. I was the vice president when I left at Ohio Guidestone. Then I became president of the school board of Stepstone Academy, which is a school that is out of, that's sponsored by Ohio Guidestone in the inner city, 30th and Central and Carnegie, in that area. And I learned so much about school, about neighborhood schools, and how, and that program has a wraparound program. So it's concerned with the student not only when they're sitting in the classroom, but when they go home and all of that. And so I have learned so much about budgeting and processes, and learned and met people, and just have a confidence in being able to do things because of that experience. So you don't get paid for it. Our boards don't, some do, but you don't get paid for it. But down the road, it looks good on your resume, and you never know who you might meet.
And I'll just very quick, because I think you said you're an M&O student, and the, you know, one good sort of professional associations, I know and you may or may not want to go into fundraising, but if you are going to be an M&O, it's never going to hurt to learn a little bit about development. And the Association of Fundraising Professionals, AFP, Cleveland, and they will have like a special rate for students, I think. And just going, you can go, and yes, you're going to meet, you know, there are fundraisers at their events, but there's also board members, you know, for nonprofits. So they have opportunities to network, and you can just, you know, that's kind of not exactly the equivalent of the NASW, but it's something else to consider. But I can't just, you know, I would just say everyone here said, and join a board or volunteer if you have a particular passion about a certain, you know, arts or education. I think, you know, people are looking for help, and they're looking for smart young people. So I think you can definitely, don't wait. In other words, even though you're not graduated, look now, and use the alumni, use us if you're looking for some, introductions. I'll just say I'm on LinkedIn. Link in with me if you like, and yeah.
And look around at each other. I ran into somebody who gave me their business card. I mean, they were just like a fellow student, or I didn't really have that much to gain from them. I didn't think at that point, but I had their contact information so that if I needed them. So look at each other, have a way to identify yourself. My dissertation was on social support networks. It would be quite different. I don't even know if I could do that dissertation now with social media, but look around, connect with somebody who's gonna get where you may wanna be and will help you get to where you wanna be. And I also say, don't feel you have to stay put. When you feel it's the time to move on, just like Ramses is saying, he didn't say, I'm sorry, I don't think I want that promotion long about now. When the opportunity came, you were ready for it and you jumped on it, right? And he didn't even ask for it. That's the thing. Somebody saw him and noticed him. So look around at each other and be your own best networks and supports.
And I just want to add that it's important for you to get to know your faculty, and also for you to allow them to get to know you. The first job I applied for out of Msass, one of my faculty was the supervisor for that role. And I was being coached from a leadership program that I was in, and I said, well, should I reach out to her and let her know I'm applying? And my coach said, why not? If she doesn't remember you, you haven't lost anything. If she does remember you, she might wonder when you're sitting across from her why you didn't reach out to her and say, hey, I'm applying, I just wanted to let you know that I'm throwing my hat in the ring. And honestly, I did. I reached out to her when I got in front of her. It made a difference because whether or not she remembered me, she knew me when I got there. And she knew that we had a connection and a kinship through Msass. And I got the job. So start your network, start now.
If there are any other questions, I want to at least allow the board members that if you need to go, we try to keep on time, but we just had so much stuff to tell you. So is there anyone else that has any questions right now? Yes, ma'am.
I'm just curious. I just wanted to know if any of the alumnus have any type of networking connections with, starting with the high school students, if you guys ever, and ladies ever go into the Cleveland Public Schools or the Catholic schools and try to see if the students that really are not unsure as to what they want their career focus to be on, do you guys go into schools and try to do networking or do mentoring programs with the high school students, like starting with the 9th grade and up, to see if they're interested in the social work program?
I think it's for us.
Oh, go ahead. I think there's a delay. That's a really good question. Actually, the administration is looking at expanding and using alumni for that purpose to get into schools and share our stories and get students excited about a potential career in social work. There's so many wonderful thoughts that have been shared with the students so far. I can't iterate more strongly how important it is to get a mentor. And I always suggest to my mentees to get somebody who represents where you want to be in 5 to 10 years, but also find somebody who's very different from you, because that opens the aperture of who you are and the possibilities of your options. A lot of times you learn a lot from people that are very different from you. And also it opens up new networks as well. There's been a lot of discussion about networks, and I can honestly say that a good portion of my positions throughout my career were spawned out of connections that I just never anticipated. And just being open and going to, with the flow of stepping in through those open doors, I realized and I was able to translate my skills into areas I just didn't even anticipate. So the more you expand that network and the more you learn from people who just have very, very different experiences that you have, it can really open a lot of doors for you.
This is not really a question, but I was just curious if Nada could help me maybe get a list of our guest speakers' contact information today, whether it's LinkedIn or email addresses. I mean, first of all, I do wanted to connect, right, socially. But second, I also wanted just to, follow up and say thank you and see if that's, a connection that we can stay in touch or establish in the future, if that's okay with everyone.
I'm happy to provide that information if everybody's okay with even just emails, or usually emails is just the way to go. So I can send those out to everybody who is here tonight. Before we close things down here, Victoria, I just wanted to mention the Alumni Career Network is another opportunity for you guys to connect with alumni, not just for this school, but for the entire university. So when you look online at the CASE site, just look for Alumni Career Network, and you'll be able to sign up. We approve you as you come through, and then you can actually reach out to Case Western Reserve University alumni from everywhere that are part of that network. So take that opportunity, like a lot of our very wise alumni were saying tonight, to get to know people who are not just alumni of this school, but alumni of the other schools at Case Western Reserve University. And it's never like you have to share your information. It's like you're just contacting them. They get the message, and then they say, yes, I'd like to meet you online or for coffee or whatever works for you. So definitely take advantage of that Alumni Career Network, because it isn't just for this school, it's the entire university that can help you. Yes.
Or we can participate as students?
No, it's students. Okay. As students. So as students, join the Alumni Career Network. I know it should be a little different name probably, but it is the Alumni Career Network, and it is for students to reach out to alumni. So you can get help from them, and then they also communicate with each other on that network. So definitely take advantage of that whenever you can. I know you're in school, it's hard to do everything at once, but if you can just join that, maybe start talking to a few people, I think that's a great way to get to know even people outside of your normal circle of the professions you're going into. So thank you, guys. Victoria, anybody else have anything else they want to add before we close things tonight? Just want to mention, there is a lot of food here, guys. So take it home, grab more, and help yourselves. And I want to thank our alumni board panel and Victoria again for all that you guys did to do this for us tonight. We really appreciate it. And if I know we have alumni in person who might want to take something, please feel free. And I'll just let it go back to Victoria here. Thank you again, Victoria, for hosting us tonight. We appreciate it.
Oh, it was my pleasure. And I want to thank the students, and I also want to thank the alumni board. I know we went over, we seldom do that, but we had a lot of good stuff to give to the students, and I hope that they were able to take some of this information and take advantage of it. Neda, do you want to have the drawing now or after?
Thank you for remembering that. Sorry. Yes, we're going to do the raffle right now.
Okay.
So students who are here, and if there's anybody else still online, yeah. Yes.
So this is the drawing that's going to, for one of our attending students to receive a Mandel School fleece sweatshirt. I had to buy mine, so I'm just. And the winner? Oh, okay, okay, okay. Nada, while you're doing that or getting ready, can I just tell the student that our next student alumni event is called Career Connections. It'll be held during the last week of March 2023. It will allow students to interact with other volunteer alumni in small groups and one-on-one settings, as well as provide resume reviewing, licensure tips, and other support for students. So please watch for the invitation.
Okay. Spinning the wheel. Stephanie's spinning the wheel for us with all the names.
Just wanted to make sure that I had the right person. And. Okay. So I am going to share my screen.
Okay.
Okay.
Uh-oh. Yes, anyone?
Cool.
That was cool. That was cool.
That's good.
Yeah, bigger is helpful.
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah. It's okay. Stop it.
It'll fit me.